Hope everyone is having a great start to the morning. Was able to join the keynote this morning. Super impactful to listen to our panel. Great to see some smiling faces too. I know presenters always love seeing some faces. So if you feel comfortable, please feel free to come on camera, but no pressure to do so if you don't want to.
Great. I'm happy to hear about that. That's awesome.
Awesome. If everyone wants to take a second, we'd love to hear where you're calling in from. You can throw it in the chat for us. City, province. I know yesterday we had basically coast to coast in one of the calls I was in, from Newfoundland all the way over to BC. There we go. We got from Florida. I love that. I hope your weather is lovely. Ours is a bit dreary today. Got Sault Ste. Marie. We got St. John's, Newfoundland, Chatham, Barrie. Oh, few Newfoundland. Love it. And sunny Kenora. I love it. I'm glad it's sunny. Has it snowed in Kenora yet?
No, they're calling for it, I think tomorrow, actually. I'm crossing my fingers that's not going to happen.
Yep, we're in for it in the north, I'm sure. Awesome. 3 Newfoundland, that's great. Love that we're reaching such a vast network. Okay, well, I will start off with my little spiel. My name is Emma Jane. I'm one of the facilitators here. I work for the HSJCC Secretariat, and I'm joined by my colleague, Alexandra, who will also be facilitating. She will be supporting with the Q&A, letting all of you folks into the call, that kind of thing. If you have any issues, please feel free to direct message one of us, and we're happy to support. Now, okay. So before we get started, I just, as I mentioned, want to review a few quick housekeeping notes, and then I'm going to introduce our speakers to begin the session. So I would like to draw your attention to the bottom of your screen, where you will find the Zoom toolbar. You can use the Q&A feature to submit your questions throughout the presentation. We will then review these questions at the end of the session and do our best to answer as many as we can with our speakers. Please ensure that your microphone is on mute until the Q&A portion of this session. If we notice that it's not, Alexandra or myself will just quickly hit mute for you. Please note that we will also be recording this session to upload to the conference website for future viewing by those who have registered for the conference. You will be able to access the platform for 90 days following the conference, so we definitely encourage you to do that, to watch some sessions you may have missed. I would also like to remind everyone that we do have closed captioning for all of our sessions. Please click on the CC icon below the video window on your screen to access this. We also kindly ask that you complete the evaluation for this session by clicking on the session in the agenda on the virtual platform. We want to make sure that these conferences really meet all of your expectations and grow in any way that we can. So it's really valuable for us when you do complete these evaluations. We would like to respectfully ask all of those attending today's session to engage with each other thoughtfully and always consider the impact of your words and interactions on others. As facilitators, Alexandra and I will not tolerate any abusive or inappropriate behavior or hate speech, and we will ensure that anyone who engages in such behavior is removed from this session. If you've been disturbed or affected by such an event, please do what you need to do for you. Take a break, step outside, practice deep breathing, and/or reach out to someone you trust. If you're in crisis and require immediate support, please click on the FAQ icon on the conference homepage to access contact information for Connex Ontario. If you would like to report an incident, contact the event manager, Sherry Sim, by either clicking on assistance button on the top right menu bar on your screen to send an email, or you can send Sherry a text. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our presenters for this session: Marnie Lai, Samantha Earhart, Charity Eby, Victoria Graff, and all of these folks are from the Clinical Justice Program in Central East. Over to you, team.
All right, can everyone see the PowerPoint? Perfect. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Victoria Graff, and as was just said, I'm joined by Charity Eby, Samantha Earhart, and Marnie Lai. Together, we're excited to present Breaking the Recidivism Cycle, Empowering Persons with Developmental Disabilities. We are truly honored to be presenting as part of the HSJCC Conference 2025. Today, we'll be highlighting the work of the Clinical Justice Program and sharing how it supports individuals with developmental disabilities and complex needs who are involved in the justice system. So our team is part of the Community Network of Specialized Care Central East in partnership with Mackenzie Help and CLH Developmental Support Services. There we go. So now I'll share our land acknowledgement. Please take a moment to read through it for yourself and join us for a brief moment of respect and a respectful reflection. Thank you so much for participating in that. Here's an overview of what we'll be covering today. We'll start with an overview of the Clinical Justice Program. We'll talk about the positions within the program, how it's structured, and the different services it offers. We'll then move into a look into the criminal justice system and the mental health court, where we'll talk through a case scenario that demonstrates how the Clinical Justice Program supports individuals throughout these systems. We'll also talk about ABA and A-DBT justice programming while providing some examples that tie to the earlier case study. We've also made sure to include some key resources near the end and some takeaways that you can use in your own practice. And we'll finish up with a short Q&A session at the end, followed by our contact information. All right, so to give you an idea of the people behind the work, this slideshow shows the positions within the Clinical Justice Program. We have a dedicated team that spans across the Central East region, starting off with our wonderful network manager, Marnie McDermott, who we also know is on the call today. Marnie Lai is our Justice A-DBT clinical specialist. Samantha Earhart and Michelle Wynn are our justice specialists. Charity Eby and I are the dual diagnosis justice clinical coordinators. Charity supports York and Simcoe regions, while I support Halliburton, Kawartha, Pine Ridge, and Durham regions. And finally, we have Christy Polito, who is our justice clinical educator coordinator. And together we provide coordinated cross-sectorial support to ensure that individuals with complex needs can meaningfully participate in the justice process and receive the supports they need. All right, so the Clinical Justice Program is built around 5 key pillars that work together to create a comprehensive and all-encompassing model of support. So this includes Pillar 1, the Justice Clinic, Pillar 2, A-DBT Justice Program, Pillar 3, the Justice App, Pillar 4, Clinical Justice ABI Resources, and Pillar 5, Provincial Virtual Education Platforms. So, it's going quickly. All right, so before we dive into the specifics of each pillar, I will touch on the role of the dual diagnosis justice clinical coordinator as it works alongside collaboratively with the other pillars within the Clinical Justice Program. So this role supports accused persons, victims, and witnesses at any stage of the justice process. We focus on helping individuals meaningfully engage with their justice matters by providing education on justice practices and helping the client navigate related appointments. We coordinate services, link supports, and programs that are specifically directed towards the client's needs. And we work collaboratively with the community and the court professionals to advocate for this client. Now, there are numerous DDJCCs across Ontario covering the primary regions of our province. Depending on the region, the title may vary. So in some regions, it may be called Dual Diagnosis Justice Case Manager. Sometimes it's just called Dual Diagnosis Justice Coordinators. However, the goal remains the same. We're here to ensure that every individual with complex needs involved in the justice system receives equitable access to supports and advocacy throughout their process.
Okay, so moving along to Pillar 1, which is the Justice Clinic in that highlighted diagram earlier that Victoria was talking about, is primarily where the Justice Specialist role does most of the work. So myself and Michelle, as Victoria mentioned earlier, are the two individuals that are the Justice Specialists currently fulfilling this role. And so our role is really to support accused and victims or witnesses that are either children or adults. They need to have some sort of developmental disability in order to qualify for our services and support. And what we do is we complete functional assessments to determine what the specific needs are or what the goals for service are. So whether that is helping them with a mental health diversion to get through to help with their better resolution for their charges, or whether that's victims preparing to testify in court. We use a biopsychosocial approach when we do our assessments to gather all the information that we need to make sure that the goals are specific to what the individuals want to work on and what they feel like is beneficial to help them get through whatever they're going through within the court process. We also complete what we call like baseline probes or tests and implement what we call individualized ABA justice plans. So ABA, for those that are not aware, is applied behavior analysis. And we use those to teach those specific skills or goals that they want to work on. You might be wondering, like, what are some examples that we might teach? So we might teach like rules and expectations for court, because the individuals that we support may not be aware of what those rules are, or even that there are rules within the court system. Perhaps peace bond conditions, adapted mental health diversion curriculum, like I spoke about earlier, or even, like I said, preparing to testify in court. We collect data throughout programming to ensure that the goals that we are working on with the individuals are assessed and that they are meeting those goals. And then we also create what's called court support plans for individuals that are going to trial to share with other justice professionals that are involved with the case. And what those court support plans include is usually like a 1 to 2 page document that includes the client's triggers, their escalations, as well as some specific recommendations and accommodations that we feel like might be helpful for them within the court system. So we're aware that, not everybody manages the same way, and we want to be specific in what those recommendations are to help them be the most successful that they can. And we'll go over that later in incoming slides.
So Pillar 2 is our Adapted-Dialectical Behaviour Therapy, or A-DBT Justice Program. And this is a unique program offering within the Clinical Justice Program, in that there's many wonderful A-DBT in-person programs that happen all across our huge province. However, in this particular case, this is a justice-focused intensive A-DBT program, and it's virtual in nature. However, the goals remain the same as other A-DBT programs. What we try to do here is we provide supportive skill-based programming and coaching to persons who are justice involved. So our entire program is done sort of through that justice lens, which makes the learning of skills and the transferring of skills a little bit easier, as individuals can transfer the skills learned into their justice process. We help individuals gain skills in terms of self-advocacy, self-acceptance, and self-management skills. And it's all done through the 4 primary skills of DBT teaching, which is mindfulness, emotion regulation, distress tolerance, and interpersonal effectiveness. Our particular program offering structure is, we call it a 12-week, but we also like to think of it as a 12-module session, meaning if it is a one-on-one offering that we're providing for an individual, we can tailor the supports to be able to work through the curriculum, but at an adapted pace, or perhaps a deliverable for individuals who may be neurodiverse and require a different kind of engagement with their facilitator. I myself do the majority of the facilitation for our team, and we have found it to be a really successful offering. Certainly because we can provide the one-on-one virtual sessions, but there is the opportunity to do groups as well if we can partner and pair individuals, in which case the amazing team here presenting with me today will join in and co-facilitate with me. As stated, though, we do keep with a similar structure. So we provide lots of opportunities to practice mindfulness, which we have heard over the course of the last day throughout this conference, that this is a wonderful foundational learning for many individuals. And then there's always skill teaching, lots of review, and then certainly cheerleading, validation, a lot of that throughout, our entire clinical justice program, because truly that level of validation and cheerleading lends itself towards awareness and acceptance, which oftentimes is a great goal here for all of us. In our program as well, a support staff or a caregiver are always encouraged to participate. So that way, any practices that happen outside of session times with me can sort of be carried on within an individual's home and community life. This helps us move things from acquisition within session time to assimilation within their lives day to day. And this has been a really positive model of support. Moving along to Pillar 3, which is our Justice app. Super excited on behalf of the team to share this resource with you. And while I'm chatting, I will invite you to please use the QR code here so that you can go and have a look at this resource yourself. It's also certainly available through the App Store, Google Play. So not only do we believe it would be a great resource to share with all of you, but we encourage you to share it with individuals that you may be supporting, who may be currently justice involved or perhaps be at risk of justice involvement. The Justice app itself was launched in 2020 as a response to the pandemic and people's need for information and access to some navigational support. It outlines information from first point of contact with the police and moves all the way through the criminal justice system. And it's just got a wealth of information and resources and wonderful visuals. So whether an individual has an intellectual developmental disability that you're working with or any kind of particular need, this would be a wonderful resource to sort of keep in your back pocket and provide to others and use as a navigational tool for yourself. It was developed in partnership between the Community Networks of Specialized Care Central East, along with Center of Behavioral Health Sciences, and we are constantly adding and expanding many of the different categories of support. And if we switch over to the next slide, we'll be able to see some examples of what you see when you visit the Justice app. And we've included here a screen grab of the table of contents so that you can see some of the areas covered, again, from that first point of contact all the way through the justice system. So please visit and share with others. Pillar 4, which hopefully many of you will be familiar with as well, because we actually have a poster about this particular resource in the gallery here at this conference. Pillar 4 is our clinical justice acquired brain injury resources, and along with a number of other resources that we have within our own personal library, the Community Networks of Specialized Care, our clinical justice program, was so happy to partner with the Central ABI System Navigator, Kathy Helovanik, and work alongside the Neurotrauma Care Pathways Initiative and create this wonderful resource, which is sort of like a repository of holistic resources that could assist individuals, not only who may have an acquired brain injury, but truly any kind of potential need out there. Here you can see the resources that may be covered within this particular library. We have ABI supports and services, community supports and social services, specialized supports and services where you might find information about justice programs or justice supports, or perhaps there's issues with housing instability or food insecurity. Maybe somebody needs information about accessibility, language-based services, cultural-based services, or healthcare needs for home care. you name it. As much of we could cover is in here. And though it started off as a central resource, we have expanded to work with the system navigators all across Ontario, and we've been able to make it a provincial resource as well. And there's also a number of national and federal resources on there too. So again, there's a QR code here that you can quick link to visit. And we've also included the website here. And if you want any more information, please come over and pop into the gallery and you can chat with Kathy and I throughout the rest of today as well.
All right, so Pillar 5, Provincial Virtual Education Platforms, is the newest pillar in the Clinical Justice Program. There are 2 education series that are a part of this pillar, and we're excited to share that one of them is actually in the process of being launched. This past spring, Christy Polito joined the Clinical Justice Program as the Justice Clinical Education Coordinator. She developed the Justice Education series for professionals working in the justice system called Building Bridges, Supporting Individuals with Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities in the Justice System. The pre-recorded webinar-style education series includes 6 modules. They're free of charge and can be accessed through a video platform called Vimeo. We've included the link on the slide, as you can see. So the first module, Developmental Disabilities and Dual Diagnosis, it was actually released last week. And the rest of the modules will be launched bi-monthly and include the following topics: identification and communication, system intersections, role of a justice professional, community resources, and justice developmental disability toolbox. An accompanying justice education manual will be launched in the spring of 2026 and will be available in both hard copy and an electronic version. It will also allow justice professionals to have access to an easy-to-use evidence and skill-based manual to ensure seamless service delivery when working with an individual with a developmental disability or dual diagnosis. So a health and forensics series has also been developed for health and forensics service system professionals who support individuals with developmental disabilities and dual diagnoses. 7 subject matter experts, including our very own Marnie, developed the skills-based education series called Health and Forensics Connection, Knowledge and Skills for Best Practices. It includes the following modules: forensic system navigation, risk assessments, substance abuse, human trafficking, impacts of stigma, and justice involvement. The modules are offered in the same format as the Justice Education series, with 6 pre-recorded webinars that are also available on Vimeo free of charge. With this series, all 6 modules will be launched as a whole curriculum package on December 1st. So we've also included the link, and that will go live on December 1st. All right, so now that we've reviewed the different roles and pillars within the clinical justice program, we'll be discussing the criminal justice system and mental health court, and how the roles in our program provide navigation and support to individuals who are involved in these systems. So today we'll be presenting a case scenario about 2 individuals who became involved in the legal system. One proceeded through the criminal justice system and the other through the mental health court. As we take you through their cases, we'll highlight the various roles within the clinical justice program and how the collaboration between these roles can aid in breaking the cycle of recidivism. So the steps that an individual goes through in the adult criminal justice system are outlined on the top portion of this slide. The accused is charged, they attend their first appearance, subsequent court appearances, make a plea or go to trial, and then receive a sentence. The steps in the mental health court are outlined on the bottom. The accused is charged, they attend their first appearance, complete an intake meeting, a plan is developed and implemented, they attend subsequent court appearances, and their matters are resolved. So as we take you through our case scenario, we'll be following the process for both systems. It is important to note, though, that every person that becomes involved in the legal system has their own unique situation and set of circumstances. So as a result, each case is different and may not follow the steps outlined on this slide. So here's our case scenario. Police were called to a convenience store by its owner. 2 males had entered the store and were stuffing potato chips and beer into their backpacks. 2 police officers arrived as the males were fleeing the store. As one of the officers approached them, a can of beer flew past his head. Both males were arrested on the scene. So Alex is 20 years old. He was previously convicted of breaking and entering. He resides in an apartment with his dog and has no ties to his family. He's been diagnosed with intellectual developmental disability, adjustment disorder, anxiety disorder, and depressive disorder. He recently started a part-time job and he's not connected to any community or support services. So now Victoria will share some information about the co-accused.
All right, so this is Cameron. Cameron is 18 years old. He has no previous criminal record or involvement with the police, currently resides in the family home with both parents and his younger sister. He's diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and substance abuse or substance use disorder. Now, he's graduated high school and would like to work in the trades, but for now, he just regularly attends day program. Okay, so here we'll get into a bit of the charge for both of them. And eventually you'll see Charity and I split them up based off their separate tracks through the system. So Alex and Cameron were arrested, charged, and released with undertaking paperwork. Now, Alex was charged with theft under $5,000 and assaulting a peace officer. Cameron was charged only with theft under $5,000. Cameron's parents helped Alex and Cameron make the referrals through the Developmental Services Ontario, through the DSO, to receive DDJCC support. Now, we do want to make note that the referrals have to come from the individuals themselves, but because Alex and Cameron were close, Cameron's parents did help Alex to make the call to the DSO. So the DDJCC, so we received the referrals and we connected with Alex and Cameron and scheduled separate intake meetings to begin service. During those intake meetings, we review our role. We review their undertaking and the fingerprinting process just to help prepare them for the first few steps. We'll also assist them with requesting the disclosure. So these are a few screenshots from the Justice app just to show you how amazing it is. And we use these quite frequently to help prepare our clients for the first few steps, as I said. So on the screen, you'll see a visual aid as well as a write-up detailing the fingerprinting process. We recognize that different individuals learn differently. So some people may need to see words, some people need that picture to help them understand what to expect. We also have a visual example of the release document, which can be used to point out key information for the clients to take note of. We recognize that those documents are very overwhelming, so utilizing this to point out specific dates and conditions is quite beneficial.
All right, so throughout service, I provided support to Alex and Victoria provided support to Cameron. So I helped Alex prepare for his first appearance by reviewing the courtroom rules, the different professionals in the courtroom and what to expect at his first appearance. Victoria did the same with Cameron. And in Cameron's case, his parents also attended the meeting to provide support. So here are the visuals that we used to teach Alex and Cameron the courtroom rules, and the roles of the different professionals in the courtroom. Just wanted to make a note that depending on the client's preferences and needs, we may use paper copies, PowerPoint presentations, or the Justice app, like we've been talking about, to review the information. So paper copies of visuals might be used when a client's not allowed to access electronics, if it's part of a court order, or we might create visuals that are specific to the client, like their undertaking conditions. So some examples of when the paper copies might be used, or if just the client would prefer that. Sometimes we use PowerPoint. They're a helpful way to share information, especially when we're meeting with the client virtually, which we do sometimes, or if we're reviewing processes like how to make a plea. So there's a bit more information involved. But yeah, in each case, we look at individualizing the materials and the way they're delivered to meet the client's needs. So Alex attended court for his first appearance. I met with him at the courthouse to help him navigate this process. We went to the Crown's office to receive his disclosure, and then we met with duty counsel to review it. When Alex was reviewing the disclosure with duty counsel, he found out that he was screened for jail time. After meeting with duty counsel, Alex and I went to the courtroom, and I sat with him while he waited for his matters to be addressed. When it was his turn, his matters were adjourned for 4 weeks to allow time to apply for a legal aid certificate and retain a lawyer. So before leaving the courthouse, I scheduled a time to meet with Alex so that we could call legal aid together and I could help him find a lawyer. So now Victoria will share about Cameron's first appearance.
All right, so for Cameron's first appearance, Cameron and his parents attended court at the scheduled date and time that we had prearranged, and I met with them to help navigate the court process. So we went to the Crown's office to receive the disclosure, and then we met with duty counsel to review it. Cameron was screened for a mental health diversion. Duty counsel connected him with the court support workers from Canadian Mental Health Association, and he was able to complete an intake at that time with the assistance of his parents and myself. Sometimes that intake appointment is scheduled for later, but we happened to be lucky that day that they had some time and they were able to squeeze us in. So while in court, his matters were adjourned for 3 weeks to allow him time to connect more with Canadian Mental Health Association and continue to develop that plan. All right, so developing that plan with Cameron. The court support worker reached out to Cameron and his parents to schedule a meeting, and I attended as well, as Cameron was agreeable to this and wanted my support. So during the meeting, the court support worker gathered information about Cameron and shared the Crown's position as well, and kind of explained it so that Cameron could understand what exactly the Crown was looking for. Upon successful completion of programming, his charge would be withdrawn. So that was great news. Now, I shared information with Cameron and the rest of the team about the Justice A-DBT program that's available through the Clinical Justice Program. And Cameron expressed that he would like to participate. He found some value in this program and he was interested. So I also provided information to Cameron and his family about just different substance abuse programs in the area. Cameron and his parents agreed to explore these options and connect with the programs about completing an intake and initiating programming.
All right, so going back to Alex, after Alex, his first appearance, I met with him and we called legal aid together. We also contacted a lawyer who agreed to represent him. Alex and I talked about his history of supports and we explored potential referrals. He agreed that it would be helpful to have an adult protective service worker and passport broker involved. He also asked for help with reconnecting with his family doctor. He shared that he used to take medications to help with his mood and that he wanted to talk with his doctor about taking them again. So Alex and I called DSO together and he requested support with case management and passport. I also helped him schedule an appointment with an APSW on an upcoming resource day. That way he could get some help with navigating community supports, like reconnecting with his family doctor, while he waited for an APSW to be assigned to him. So, and just in talking about subsequent court appearances, so Alex signed the designation of counsel form to allow his lawyer to appear in court on his behalf. After reviewing the disclosure with Alex and myself, Alex's lawyer scheduled a Crown pretrial. I prepared a letter for Alex's lawyer to share with the Crown that outlined Alex's diagnoses and the referrals that had been made. I maintained ongoing communication with Alex's lawyer and conducted regular check-ins with Alex to discuss updates, answer any questions he had, and review the court proceedings with him. So using those visuals in the Justice app to help him understand the process. So following the CPT, the lawyer let Alex know that the Crown's position was reduced time in custody. So Alex told his lawyer that he did not throw the can of beer at the police officer. He said that while he was running out of the store, he fell. And then he quickly got up, scooped up his backpack off the ground and swung it over his shoulder. When he did this, the beer flew out of his backpack towards the officer. So as a result, he told his lawyer he was going to plead not guilty to the assault charge and go to trial. So I talked with Alex about the role of the justice specialist in the clinical justice program. He agreed that he would like support with preparing for trial and a referral was made. Once the referral was received, it was determined that it was an appropriate fit. Sam and I connected to discuss the referral and we continued to collaborate to provide support. So Sam reached out to Alex and booked an initial meeting. And now Sam will talk about how she helped Alex prepare for trial.
So in my preparation to help Alex, like Charity had mentioned, we had an initial meeting, both Charity and myself, with Alex. That's where I completed, like I had said earlier, my functional assessment and gathered kind of baseline information on what did Alex know about court, what did he know about trial. I know that Charity had already done some visuals and some work with him in terms of first appearances, so he was a bit familiar with the process, but trial is a much different process and obviously a lot more stressful. So I wanted to kind of gather like what he knew about that process before starting. Once I kind of gathered that information, I created an individualized plan for him, and the goals really were to teach him what his expectations were for at trial, like how was it going to happen start to finish. And then his lawyer had also reached out to the team and said that Alex may have to testify as part of his trial process. So another goal was just working on teaching his expectations for testifying at trial. Um, I implemented the plan with him, continued to meet with him on a weekly basis a couple of months before his trial to review the content. I created a lot of visuals because for Alex, the visuals were very helpful. And then continued to gather data on his progress to make sure that he was continuing to remember the things that we were talking about and, understanding what the process was going to look like. So I have some visuals on the next slide. So these are some samples that I took from his. I did a PowerPoint presentation for him. Like Charity said, visuals and words were helpful for him. He was able to read. For some individuals, they may not be able to read, so the visuals are more helpful, but for him, he was able to do both. So as you can kind of see here, a little bit of layout of the courtroom. He had already been in the courtroom before, so it wasn't new to him, but at least kind of giving him the lay of the land and telling him the step-by-step plan of what was going to happen at his trial. This is just one of many slides that I used with him, but just to give him a snapshot of what was going to happen. And then for the second goal, like I had mentioned, Alex's lawyer said that he might have to testify. I wanted to review with him what some tips were that he might need to remember when testifying. These tips, obviously, like his lawyer will give him more specific feedback on terms of and prep with him on terms of specifics. But generally speaking, I wanted to kind of go over some things that I felt like might be important for him to know when he's answering questions. And we would kind of, practice like what each of these components mean. So these are the first three, and then there's three on the next slide as well. And once again, these are very general, but for individuals that I support, I often find that, they're not aware of what these are. And it's really helpful for them to go over it and to discuss, why these might be important or why these might be helpful to remember. So after we had gone through those two goals, like I had mentioned, and he had met them, I attended preparation meetings with Alex and his lawyer, and Charity was there as well. This is really important, I would say, for my role and for Charity's role, because oftentimes out of those lawyer meetings, we do find that maybe there's extra goals that we might be able to work on, or maybe additional stuff or conversation or language that's used by the lawyer that we can go back and use in our meetings with them to make sure that everything's kind of streamlined with the process. So I continued to have the preparation meetings. We had a discussion with his lawyer that a court support plan, like I spoke about earlier, might be helpful to outline some of his anxious behaviors that he might exhibit either, while he's just sitting there with his trial or on the stand if he has to testify, as well as some recommendations that might be helpful to get him through his trial. So here's a sample of Alex's court support plan. So this is what they typically would look like. It would have their client information at the top, diagnoses, behavioral supports, identifications and triggers. So what does their escalation plan look like? What might it start with? What are those, cues that we might see that might tell us he's starting to get anxious or he's starting to get overwhelmed, maybe he needs a break, all of those kinds of things. And I try to include a nice visual component, like a quick snapshot. It's really small, but you can see in the blue that there's like a little visual component to it, as well as specific recommendations and modifications. So what are some things that I feel like might help him to get through his court process? So anytime I create a court support plan, whether it's for a victim or like Alex, for somebody who is charged and accused, it's individualized. And I always find it's best when all parties, so defense lawyers, crowns, and judges are aware of the court support plan, and it gets followed actually quite well when everybody is involved in supporting. So kind of what happened at the trial. So, Charity and I both attended the trial with Alex and his lawyer. When it was time for the matter to be addressed and he knew the process, he went to the front of the courtroom, he sat beside his lawyer. And, we did talk to his lawyer and say, is it possible for one of us to sit next to him just as an extra support, based on the recommendations in the report that I wrote? That was granted and that was allowed, which was helpful for him. During his testimony, because he did have to testify, the lawyer followed all the recommendations outlined in the court support plan. Like those were just some of the examples of some of the ones that I had written in there. And, he did a really good job of remaining calm and using a break card when he needed it, which was one of the recommendations that I had given that he wasn't the best at verbalizing when he needed a break, but the visual break card that he could lift up and show was really helpful for him. So the result of the trial process specifically was that Alex was found not guilty of assaulting the peace officer. In relation to the second charge, which was the theft under $5,000, he was sentenced to 12 months of probation. Both myself and Charity attended with him during his sentencing hearing and assisted him with connecting with his probation as part of our support system. Some other outcomes that came out of our support and our process was that he was able to get reconnected with his family doctor. He's taking new medication and, reports that he's starting to feel more like himself, which is really the ultimate goal of what we want for the individuals that we support. He has ongoing support from his new APSW and his passport broker, which is helping him to manage his funds. And he's also participating in group activities run by his local community participation supports programs. So, all of that wouldn't necessarily have been possible without all of the work that, Charity, myself, and his team had done to work together to help him to be successful. And over to
Amazing, Sam. Yes, thank you. So if everyone recalls with Cameron, Victoria was working with Cameron, he was going more through that mental health stream. So in this particular case, the court agreed that if Cameron could complete a certain level of programming, he certainly could move through that mental health diversion stream. So in this particular case, Victoria submitted a referral to myself for the A-DBT Justice Program here. And I scheduled an intake meeting with Cameron as quickly as I could. One of the nice things about our program, though we do manage a small wait list, we do try to be responsive and timely to the needs of the court and an individual who's moving through that process. So we are able to make linkages fairly quickly, which is wonderful because as so many of us know who are supporting individuals, sometimes it just feels like we're managing wait lists at times. But we do try to be responsive to the court and move at an individual's pace according to their justice matters. So once we had that intake scheduled, which was just within a few weeks of Victoria sending me the referral, I did book an intake meeting with Cameron and his parents, and both Cameron and his mother agreed to attend sessions with me, which was great. As stated, having a support person or a caregiver, someone who's involved in that person's life day to day, it's really helpful for them to attend sessions along with us because then they can be learning at the same pace as Cameron and help him use his skills and transfer those into other areas. So for myself, much like Sam does, I also complete pre-curriculum assessments. It helps me to sort of gauge where an individual's at, what are the gaps in understanding, how do they learn, and what can we work on in this 12-module time together. At that point, I usually tuck away for a week or two, and then I develop an individualized program, which I did for Cameron here. And we scheduled a start date from 3 weeks from that intake. So things were moving quickly and the courts were really happy with that. And it also allowed me to stay with Cameron's momentum. I did provide Cameron a copy of our Justice A-DBT interactive manual, which we created, along with an accompanying workbook, which we also have, and I have a sample of that on the following page. So this is a quick snapshot of our interactive manual and home practice workbook. So 2 separate documents. There's over 200 pages of curriculum. Oh, thank you, Emma. There's over 200 pages of curriculum here. All of the skills we'll be teaching, all of the different mindfulness practices, lots of cheerleading throughout it. So every participant who participates in this program will receive a copy of this manual, and it's theirs to keep. So that way they can carry on with it outside of programs. So even though I do the facilitation and the teaching, everything that we teach is going to be here for them to keep from that day forward. Onto the next slide, you can have a little sneak peek on what's inside. We've given you a snapshot of our table of contents. So again, 12 weeks, 12 modules, but this is kind of how we run through it. Mindfulness becomes the foundational teaching of this program, which is incredibly important. So it's sort of salt and peppered throughout. But again, we focus on distress tolerance as well, emotion regulation, and interpersonal effectiveness. So though the manual is the manual and it's structured that way, I do stick to all of the curriculum. So every individual that I work with will receive all of the same curriculum. However, it is an individualized program. So if I understand that somebody requires more visual learning, or if literacy is a little bit different, every session that I do virtually with individuals I support also has an accompanying PowerPoint presentation that I provide and share my screen with. And all of those are individually tailored so that I can really capture a person's interest or meet them for their learning needs. So if somebody's really into wrestling, for instance, I'll try to weave in Hulk Hogan as much as I can just to continue to capture their interest. So this has been a really effective way to engage the individuals we support, both on a one-on-one level, but also, again, being responsive to the requests of the court. There's also home practices provided, so skill practice outside of sessions, and then also diary cards, emotional diary cards, so I can kind of maintain an emotional temperature for that individual and have appropriate check-ins and meet them for that emotional support too. But not only for the individual, but also for the support person or the caregiver who's participating alongside us. Here's an example of some of the home practices that I will assign outside of our session times. An individual would be sent away with a task or a practice to complete, and then they would come back and share that with me at the following session. Of course, even though we have our structured session times, I am available to individuals that I'm working with if they have questions or if their support person has any questions outside of session in terms of home practices. But this sort of gives you an idea of what we're working on. Again, also mentioning that our A-DBT justice program is intensive, but also justice focused. You can see here any opportunities we have. If we are practicing a particular scenario or doing role playing, I do try to keep it justice informed. So in this particular case, I'm preparing for a court appearance, or I'm in court and I'm feeling a particular way. What are some strategies that I could use? We have found this to be incredibly a helpful way to work on that skill transference so that we can kind of go from acquisition to assimilation and then hopefully to generalization. So let's pop back to Cameron specifically. So I met with Cameron to complete our 12-week module, and this took us approximately 16 weeks. As stated, it is a 12-week program, but it took Cameron a little bit longer to work through, and I don't want to rush him. So we borrowed a little bit of extra time for extra weeks just to really ensure that we had covered all of the material that I had promised. I provided coaching throughout to Cameron and his mother in between sessions, and just really tried to work on that fluid emotional support and that skills support as we were going along. Fortunately, Cameron and his mother were very dedicated to the program, so that was fantastic. Throughout this whole time, myself, I'm providing any pertinent progress updates to the team, so to Victoria and anybody else who might be involved, and then maintaining just community supports, court, justice, whoever is collaboratively working with Cameron. I'm also providing progress updates to the team as we move along. So For Cameron, as we were providing updates to the court, everybody was satisfied. So sometimes he would have to attend court every 3 or 4 weeks and provide an update. But in this case, the court had said, okay, once he completes the program, then he can come back and we can speak to that. So that was great. So because of that great communication, we didn't have to put Cameron through this revolving door of having to go back every 2 or 3 weeks. So that was wonderful that Victoria was able to advocate for that. And once his program was complete, I provided a formal letter of support to the court and also awarded Cameron with an A-DBT justice certificate, which is important because anybody, when you complete something, it's nice to get a certificate. So certainly Cameron was awarded one for his good work. And then a copy of that certificate was also provided to Victoria and the court so that there was some supportive documentation there along with the letter of support I wrote. And then everybody deserves to be celebrated, right? So I always hold a celebration for all of my graduates. And Cameron's mother was a part of that as well, so that we could recognize his program achievement and then provide a final session where we could really review again those newly acquired skills and highlight some of his preferred strategies throughout our time together. Again, the home practice manual and the workbook that we had worked through together over this 12 module time, the 16 weeks, was the property of Cameron to keep for any future reference, which was great. So validation, cheerleading and practice. Here's a copy of Cameron's certificate. And yeah, just wanted to put this slide in here just to further reinforce how important it is to validate and celebrate successes all along the way. So Cameron's resolution and outcome was, in addition to attending programming with me, he was also attending those biweekly counseling sessions to help address those issues with his substance use. He was also going to begin some employment readiness courses and doing some of that through his community participation supports. So following 6 months of stability, which was incredible, and oftentimes the courts will say, okay, great, let's do these programs, and then let's put things on hold and sort of see if the individual can stabilize and continue on. And that's certainly a fair and reasonable request at the courts at times. And in this case, Cameron was able to do that, continue to successfully engage in his programming, and he attended his final court appearance with Victoria and his parents, and ultimately his charge was withdrawn due to all the wonderful work and dedication that Cameron and his caregiver as well had made. He did complete his employment readiness course and gained employment at a local woodworking shop, which was great and in line with his interests. And to this day, he continues to participate in some self-help programming, and he has maintained his sobriety with his ongoing support of his parents and amazing community partners. So that was a wonderful outcome for Cameron as well. So we hope that these 2 individual case studies have shown you how we can really utilize all the pillars of the clinical justice program to be innovative and collaborate to provide supports for 2 different individuals who are going on 2 different streams in the court. Of course, these are just 2 of so many examples, but we hope you found these highlights helpful so that we could really give you a wonderful picture of how our clinical justice program tries to tailor and individualize supports to meet people where they're at. If a referral to our dual diagnosis justice clinical coordinator, so Victoria or Charity, would be of assistance, we wanted to provide a little bit of information here. Generally, our supports are connected through Developmental Services Ontario. We've provided the phone number. We are part of the Central East region. We did provide a little tip here because, as we know, as many of us know, if you are trying to connect with DSO, it can be quite a busy system. So generally, you will get a voicemail when you call DSO. If you do, what I could recommend to sort of streamline that connection for you is to always leave a full first and last name of an individual you might be calling about, provide their date of birth, specific information about the charges and which area you're requesting service from. I would even suggest if you're supporting somebody with that phone call, you can do the majority of the talking, but you could say, I'm with so-and-so. So for instance, if it was Cameron, I'm with Cameron. Cameron, do you proof for me to speak on your behalf. Even if Cameron just says, yes, my name is Cameron, I'm okay. That's often enough just for DSO to at least have some verbal consent to call you back directly, just so that you don't get into a game of kind of phone tag. If it is a voicemail system that you're reaching. So here's the phone number for DSO in Central East here. On to the next page, a little bit of information on how you can connect with Sam or Michelle. In this case, you could email our clinical justice program. We've got our group email here, or Samantha directly. You can also email her as well. Just sort of do a service inquiry. Once this is received, the clinical justice program will triage the request, and then we'll forward along any appropriate forms that might be needed based on our capacity to support. An interesting thing about the justice specialist programs is they are able to work with children and youth at times if necessary, though the majority of the individuals they support are sort of in that funded adult sector like us. But that is sort of a nice addition to the justice specialist role. And not all of the referrals have to go through Developmental Services Ontario. For myself, however, with our Justice A-DBT programming, most of my referrals do come through DSO. The majority of the individuals I support are within that funded adult sector. Nonetheless, if you have anything that you would like to tease out or inquire about, again, you're able to reach our A-DBT Justice program through that same clinical justice email, which is here, and we'll go through the same process. We'll triage the request, and if we're able to support, we'll certainly forward the appropriate paperwork or have a consult to at least tease out what you might be able to explore if our program wasn't appropriate at that time. How did we do? Pretty good. Look at that. Right on the money. We've left us about 5 minutes for some questions. If you have any, we'll do our best to provide any answers. And, just on behalf of our entire clinical justice program, thank you for your interest and your time and your attention today. And we're here for the next little bit if you have any questions.
Amazing. Well, just on behalf of everyone, thank you so much, team, for this incredible presentation. I think, honestly, I'm still processing everything, all the amazing resources from just tailoring it to each individual's experience. I think I can just imagine, as I've supported clients going through the justice system, how beneficial that is. Whether you're experiencing, like, whether you have a developmental disability or not, I think it's so helpful. And same, I was just looking through the Justice app, and truly incredible what you've created. We do have a couple questions for you. So the first question is, did it take a significant amount of time for the courts to be open to receiving the court support plans? They're wondering how the process was for starting this.
Sorry, I had to find the unmute button. I think, yes, it did take some time. Like previous to my involvement, there was a lot of pushback on the court support plans, but when you build the network of people and support the individuals, you start to get to know the Crown attorneys and the defense lawyers and the judges. And there really has been a push over the last number of years in terms of the developmental sector to supporting individuals and making sure that we're accommodating that, whether that's physical disabilities or, developmental disabilities. So, obviously, every courthouse is different, every judge is different, but I've had a lot of great successes with people being on board and willing to participate, because at the end of the day, all they want is for people to get through the process and to give the best evidence that they can and to make it as fair as possible. So giving those things in mind, I think a lot of people have been more open and more willing to kind of adopt that approach and have those supports and recommendations.
Amazing. And then we have a question here that says, do you support individuals in forensic who have an intellectual disability? And if so, how?
I'm not sure which one is that specific to. I think all of it.
I was going to say I could jump in. I mean, we've found along the way that, say, during the course of the court process, someone needs to get a fitness assessment done. I mean, we're obviously there to support throughout that process. If they're going through, NCR assessment. So we're there to support throughout the court process. I don't know if that answers the question, but we're also, involved and available to provide support if fitness assessments or NCR assessments come up, and that's part of the process for the individual.
Wonderful. Are there any other questions for our awesome presenters today? Feel free to come to the mic if you'd like, or said you can use the Q&A.
Do you see there's like a question, not necessarily a question in the chat, but something about wondering about local supports like this in Durham? Victoria, since you cover Durham, not sure if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, my mic is off.
Oh, Victoria,
So
we can't hear you.
can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good now. Sorry.
Yeah, so I service the Durham area, and I do work with quite a few probation and parole officers within that region, as well as my other regions. So everything that we've spoken about today is applicable to Durham. I work a lot within the Oshawa court. I had a PO appointment within the court last week, so everything is applicable. It just depends on the situations of that specific individual and how we can cater a plan towards their needs. But if you're in Durham region and you want to reach out to me specifically, we can definitely touch base about this. Actually, I do have a slide at the end with our contact information. I'm just going to reshare my screen so everyone can take note of that.
Perfect. I was also just going to say, Victoria, on the platform itself, if you go to attendees, you can actually chat with each other on the conference platform. So feel free to reach out to one another that way.
Perfect. Oh. No, did not work.
Oh, we do have one other question in the chat. Do you help connect people to ongoing supports once they receive a community sentence to ensure they are supported after the court process?
Yes, we can. I mean, like Charity and I have said, we support every step of the way. And it doesn't just stop when there's a plea or when there's a sentence. If there is a need for us to help, navigate and facilitate linkages to different programs while they're on probation, or I'll give you an example. I have a gentleman who's on house arrest. We stay there as long as the need is there to help the individual understand their specific situation, as well as linking them to other supports that can be in place when we kind of close the file. Another example I have is I have a couple gentlemen in a different region who I am working with them on their probation order just while I help wait for an APSW to be assigned to help them with the case management, because there's parts of their probation order, different conditions that they cannot meet on their own, but the wait list for an APSW takes a long time. So we don't close the case when the court matters are done. We really do an assessment based off their specific needs, and we speak to their support team, right? And we speak to their family and their PO and see what really is needed, and we work with the community to see what we can do. And we're also very honest with the client. So if, I know I'm going to close at the end of a sentencing, they know that from the beginning. If I'm there just for probation until an APSW is assigned, they know that. They know that it's a temporary service, but we are here to support them and make sure that they're not left alone after.
Okay, wonderful. Well, based on time, I just want to be mindful of everybody's time today. And so you can go to their sessions, take a lunch break, take a health break, whatever you need. But if everybody can use those reactions to please join me in thanking our speakers, big round of applause for this fabulous presentation and sharing your knowledge with us. If you can all also take some time, please, to fill out the survey for this session. You can just click on the agenda in the conference platform, choose the session you're currently attending, and next to the join button, you will find the survey play button. Click on this survey and complete the short survey. It literally takes about a minute to complete, but we really appreciate your feedback. And we also encourage you to take some time to connect with your fellow participants. As I mentioned, through the platform, you can attend the poster and exhibitor halls where you can view poster presentations. And you can also build your own agenda by clicking on the Add to My Calendar button. We also appreciate if you could take a few moments to complete our conference evaluation, which is the evaluation for the entire event, by clicking on the evaluation icon. Your feedback is anonymous, appreciated, and we will be using it to plan future events. Thank you so much again to everybody, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and a wonderful rest of the conference.